All right, guys. Today we're talking about the distance formula and the midpoint formula. So that's the focus today. I'm going to run through these guided notes for you real quick, and then we'll get to work. All right. So our target today is we want to be able to use the distance formula and the midpoint formula when dealing with coordinate points and also in the coordinate planes. We'll get there as well. All right. So first things first, guys, the distance formula, if you haven't heard of it, you do now. There it is. Highlight it, star it, whatever you need to do, okay? You need to memorize this, okay? Distance formula, very important. It actually comes from the Pythagorean theorem. We'll get more into that later. But that's where we're going to start off. So very important. Highlight that right now today. The color of the day is yellow, so we're going to use yellow for that. All right? So, guys, when we're using distance formula, all we have to do is plug our numbers in to the formula. So if my first point here is A, all right, my second point here is supposed to be B, okay, then these would actually be x2 and y2, okay, and that's where I'm going to plug these numbers in. So I'm going to put my x1, my y1, and my x2, my y2, and then I'm just going to work that all out. So you're going to need a calculator today as well. Be sure to go grab one now if you haven't gotten one already. Okay, so guys, check out example 1. I'm going to work that out with you. Okay, we just want to find the distance between these 2 points. We got T, we have R. Okay, T's at 5, 2, and R's at -4, -1. So first thing I want you to do is I want you to go ahead and label x1, y1, and x2, y2. So our x1, y1, okay, I'm going to go and say that's T. So I'm just going to put a little x1, y1 above those numbers. That way I can keep everything straight, all right? And I don't get confused. There's a lot of numbers rolling around here. Don't want to get confused. So then we got point R, guys. That's going to be our x2, y2. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and put a little x2, y2 right underneath those numbers. Again, just to make it easier on ourselves. All right, we don't want to get confused. So now I can take those and I can plug that into my distance formula. So I'm going to go ahead and set that up. Going to get a nice big square root here. Okay, and then I'm going to go ahead and write everything in underneath. So I'm going to start off just like the formula says, guys. x1 minus x2. So where's my x1? Oh, there it is. I already labeled it. Look at that. All right, so 5 minus x2. Now, minus a negative is what? Plus a positive. Perfect. So 5 plus 4. Okay, and then don't forget the square root. Everybody, or the square rather, everybody always forgets the exponent. Everybody forgets the squared. Don't forget. Okay, now I got my y's, just like the formula says. y1 plus y2. Where's my y1? Well, look at that. I already labeled it. So it's right there waiting for me. That's 2. And then minus y2, that would be minus -1. Once again, minus a negative makes that sucker positive. So that's going to be 2 plus 1. And once again, guys, don't forget the squared. So let's go ahead and break this down step by step. Okay, 5 plus 4, that would be 9. Okay, 2 plus 1, that would be 3. Easy enough. So we're looking at 9 squared, which is 81, and 3 squared, which is 9. So we want the square root of all that. Don't forget to bring that down. So that would be, of course, the square root of 90. Okay, and this is where the calculator comes in real handy because that's not going to come out even. Okay, what do we call it when a number comes out even with a square root? Perfect square. That's right. 90 is not a perfect square. So we can leave it in radical form, which is where we leave the square root, or we can work that out and get the decimal. All right, our decimal comes out to be 9.48, etc. We'll go ahead and just round that off to 9.5 for today. Okay, it says round to the nearest tenth. So that would be our answer, okay? And that's how we use distance formula, all right? Again, guys, with a formula, it's just a matter of plug and chug, basically. That's how the saying goes. You take the numbers, you plug it in, and then you do the chug. You work it all out, all right? So I'm just going to do that one for distance, all right? We'll leave it there for now. If you need me to do more later, I can. But let's go ahead and bounce down to midpoint, all right? So midpoint formula. This is how we figure out where the midpoint is. And the midpoint is where? That's right. It's always in the middle. So here's our formula for that one, guys. Go ahead and, again, highlight it, star it, whatever you want to do. But be sure you draw some attention to this formula. You need to memorize it, okay? So once again, if I have 2 coordinates, point A, all right, at x1, y1, and again, this is supposed to be point B. Too many typos in my notes here. At x2, y2. Okay, all I have to do is plug those coordinates into my formula, and that's going to give me my midpoint, all right? So let's check that out real quick with example 2. I'm going to do a couple of these for you. So on example 2a, we have line QS at endpoints Q and S. Find the coordinates of the midpoint. Pretty straightforward here. So again, just like we did on the distance formula, identify what is your first coordinate, what's your second coordinate with x1, y1, x2, y2. So I'm going to do that here. Q is going to be my first one, okay? x1, y1. Write that above the numbers. That way, again, you're not going to get confused. Then S is my second, so I'm going to put a little x2, y2 above those numbers, okay? So now, when I plug those numbers in, there's no question I'm going to get that confused, all right? So for my midpoint, I just put an M, and then right next to my parentheses, you're going to want your parentheses kind of big, okay, because we're going to put a lot of stuff in here. And I like to go ahead and set this bad boy up, okay? We're looking for coordinates, so that's why it's in parentheses, and that's why we always use a comma, okay? Don't forget to do that, because we're talking about coordinates. All right, so for my x's, I need an x1 plus x2. So where's my x1? Well, right there, already labeled for me. It's 3. Where's my x2? Well, it's right here. It's 7. Easy enough, okay? 3 plus 7 over 2. Now let's jump over to the y's, all right? Check out my y1. y1 is 5, okay? Already labeled again. And my y2 is 9. Again, already labeled, making it easy on ourselves. And then, of course, all that is over 2 as well. So I'm going to go ahead and do these next two steps kind of together because we should be all right with that. All right, 3 plus 7 is 10. Divided by 2 is 5. Perfect. And then over here, 5 plus 9 is 14. Divided by 2, 7. So that's going to be my y value. All right, so that is it. I'm done, guys. Our midpoint is 5, 7. Okay. Not too bad, right? Okay. Now, they're not always going to ask you for the midpoint. Sometimes they may give you the midpoint and an endpoint, and you have to work backwards. So let's check out one of those real quick on example 3a. Okay, this time they tell us the midpoint is at 3, 4. Okay, and one endpoint is at -3, -2. So what I like to do for this, guys, is I like to actually take your midpoint formula right here and break it up kind of into two parts, an x part and a y part, okay? So let's do that. So we're going to break it into two parts. So our x coordinate is equal to x1 plus x2 over 2, all right? And then our y coordinate is equal to y1 plus y2 over 2, okay? So what we can do now is we can plug in the information we have and work that out to solve for what we don't. So we have our midpoint values. This is x and y. And then we have one endpoint. We'll call that x1 and y1. So let's plug all that in and see what we can do with it. So we start off here, guys. Our x value is 3 for the midpoint, so we put that right there. Our x1 value is -3. Okay, and we're basically solving for x2, all right? That's the missing piece of information. So now for our y's, we do the same thing. We have our y value for the midpoint, okay, that's 4. And we have our y1, okay, for the endpoint, that's -2. So we're going to plug that in here, -2. And again, we're essentially solving for y2, okay? All right, so now, guys, we just work it out. So we have two little mini equations. So over here, we're going to multiply by 2. Okay, 6 equals -3 plus x2. Add 3. x2 equals 9. And then over here, we're going to multiply by 2. Okay. And then we're going to add 2. So y2 is going to equal 10. So altogether, my endpoint, point B, we shall call it, is at 9, 10. And there you have it. Distance and midpoint. There's the bell. That means get to work.